Hi guys, we are here with another session of live discussions as part of the Movie Club. We are the Movie Club on Facebook, and today I have a bunch of people here to talk about our pick of the week. And our pick of the week is Vertigo by an unknown filmmaker, some random dude named Alfred Hitchcock. And this is a very exciting time. There's four of us, and some of us are from different cities, and some of us are from different countries. So we might be experiencing some technical difficulties, so bear with us. So with us we have Yasser, and we have Neo coming in from Iraq, where he's quarantined. And I want to welcome Phoenix, who apparently follows Razz Reviews all the way from Canada. I have a foot in the door now in Canada. I better buy some jackets. So how you guys doing?
I'm okay.
We're good.
All right.
Thanks for having us.
Okay, exciting time, exciting time. So that's why we were a little delayed, because we were trying to figure out the, the technical difficulties of getting all four of us together was not as smooth as possible. So our pick of the week was Vertigo by Alfred Hitchcock, probably one of the most famous films he's ever done. It was released in 1958, starring James Stewart, of course, and Kim Novak. It actually, in 2012, this film replaced Citizen Kane as for Light and Sound's best films of all time. It was actually at number 2, and Citizen Kane was at number 1 for a very long time, until 2012, where they did another round of votes, and it went to number 1. Critics worship this film. Most film fans recognize it or have an opinion about it. It's an extremely influential film by a very influential man, Captain Alfred Hitchcock. I have a lot to say about Alfred Hitchcock. I'm going to talk a little bit also. We want to discuss a little bit of his style. Here in 1958, he was he was pretty honed at his skills. He started in the 20s, 30s. Where he was very popular in England, and then in I believe 1939, when he did 39 Steps, he went to the United States, and then that's when he really blew up. The first film he made there, Rebecca. By the way, I'm not reading this from anything. I'm doing this from my memory. I know this information because I love
to show off.
I am showing off because I don't want everybody to think I'm reading trivia from. No, it's true. He did Rebecca. He won the Oscar for Best Film in 1940 when he first came to America, when he first moved to Hollywood, and then from there, 40s and 50s, he just blew up. Of course, until he made he said Vertigo. It was Vertigo, Rear Window, Psycho. These things were just towards after him blowing up. He did North by Northwest before this. Mid-50s. So anyway, big guy, heavy influence in cinema. Almost most of the films.
Fantastic. These are all fantastic fat man puns, considering that he was a big man.
Okay.
Big man, heavy influence.
Sure. Yes.
Oh,
yes,
good.
Yes, I would say so. I would say his influence is pretty big. All right. So I'm going to start with you, Neo, since you opened your fat mouth about Fat Hitchcock. You've never seen this film, even though you're a filmmaker, supposedly, and you went to school, but for some reason you didn't. So tell me your first impression, having seen it. You know of it, of course, but what was it like for you seeing it? What was your first impression?
So for me, I've seen a lot of different films when I was studying film. I watched a lot of Kubrick, a lot of Fellini, all these big names, and a lot of people were talking about obviously Alfred Hitchcock. And the first Alfred Hitchcock movie that I ever watched was Psycho. So for me, Psycho was one of the biggest influences, I guess, for anything that was. Any expectations I had for a Hitchcock film, and this one was so different. I really didn't think that it was going to be like this. I expected there to be a lot more mystery, a lot more. Well, obviously it was a lot of mystery, but I expected a lot of killing, something disturbing, something weird. This was all of that, but in a very different way.
Yeah.
So I wasn't disappointed, but I was caught a little bit off guard because I didn't expect a love story, I guess, a twisted love story nonetheless, but still a love story.
Yeah.
That's about it, I think.
Well, Yasser being the person who is better educated. You are better educated in film than Neo is. Yeah. So what did you? How you rewatched it now? Part of the challenge.
Yes.
Okay. So coming back to this film, how did it feel? Coming back into this film after so many years. What was like? Have you seen it? Have you not seen it in a while? Like, tell me.
No, oh, I haven't seen it since my college years. So again, before one of the things that was happening in university, I was trying to build up my film guns before trying to go to film school. Yeah. So one of the things you do is you try to go through the roster of films that your advisors and whatever tell you to watch. So at that time, I had realized that I had never seen an Alfred Hitchcock film, which was ridiculous because, you know, even back then, everybody knew who Alfred Hitchcock was. There were so many cultural references that are all drawn from his films. Like, even when you watch Vertigo, there are lines, there are ideas, like I was saying to you before we went live, about on design. And there's just so many global and Western cultural references that rely on Alfred Hitchcock films. So I was just like, shoot, I need to watch his movies. So I started with Psycho, and then I watched them all. I watched as many as I could back to back that I could rent from Blockbuster.
Nice.
You know, you remember Blockbuster. And
way to make me feel old.
I can say, I think with fair confidence that Yasser is the oldest person here, which is nice because usually I'm like the oldest person here. So there you go.
Razz, you are just a wee baby to us.
What about him? What about this millennial who cannot enter a Zoom session?
Just go on. Let's speak about Hitchcock.
So to answer your question, Razz, here's what was different. So I watched them back to back. So once you get into the zone with Alfred Hitchcock,
you become obsessed, like Vertigo.
Yes,
you're just like, I need to see more.
You're in that world. Yeah. My favorite Alfred Hitchcock film. My dad and my mom are big Hitchcock geeks, by the way. So I'm still shocked at how I didn't grow up watching Alfred Hitchcock. I had to go to college to be convinced. But anyway, so my dad always referenced Room with a View as one of his favorite films. And so that was one that I really loved, but my favorite was The Birds.
Really?
The Birds?
Yeah. Not one of his most critically acclaimed.
But it was my favorite. But again, I didn't, you know, in the 90s, there was nothing to tell me it was crap or good or not. So, and again, when you're watching them back to back, like you were saying, you're getting into the Hitchcock mode, you start to see what he's trying to do with all his stories.
The Birds is very entertaining.
Yes. Yeah. But I will say this about Vertigo. Now that it's like, 20 odd years since I've seen a Hitchcock film, and you know the way we watch, we've had this conversation before, guys. The way we watch movies now, everything is so fast paced, the editing, all of it's different. It took me a while to absorb the pacing of this film. Yeah. So that to me was kind of something that threw me off, because where I thought we were coming to the resolution and conclusion of the film, what feels like it, like, even though I know it's still continuing on, right? Like, I don't want to say any spoilers right now, right? I can't spoil.
No, we can. This is the movie club. Everybody who's
you should have watched before you came here.
Yeah. Spoil away. No worries.
So what was happening, just as a feeling, even though mentally I knew that the movie wasn't ending when the when the real wife of what's his name? Oh my God, I forgot the name. The husband's wife. Sorry, Elster's wife. The real wife was thrown off,
Madeline.
right?
And the real Madeline.
Yeah. So in my mind, I was like, oh, now, you know, we're approaching the end. This is gonna start pacing really quickly. You know, I mean, I knew what the events were, but in my mind, we're coming to the end of the movie. Then I realized when I finished the movie, I was like, oh shit, that was another hour and a half or an hour of the movie. The pacing threw me off. Like, I think that was when you're not watching an Alfred Hitchcock movie, and if you're not back in a time where movies were still paced out a bit, it just kind of, you know, getting into that kind of pacing is what was different for me. The other thing that was different, I mean, back then I enjoyed it because it was a film, and, you know, and all the other things you get excited about as an aspiring film student or whatever. But this time, I really enjoyed looking at it at a more mature point of view, again, with the experience that I've had, and from a designer's point of view.
We're going to get into the designer stuff. Cool. All right.
And like all that stuff was a lot of fun for me this time.
Well, that was not a quick first impression, but thank you for a pretty,
I'm very worried.
in deep first impression. Phoenix, before we lose you again to the Canadian airwaves.
Sorry about that.
That's
I'm
fine.
so sorry.
It's okay. So tell us what was your first impression? You are also seeing it for the first time. So what did you think? What was your first impression of this film?
Okay. Oof. Yes. So before seeing this movie, the only Hitchcock films I had seen were Psycho and The Birds. And first, just to say, I really like the movie. It's very good. What took me aback was, for a movie made in the late 50s, I really liked how experimental it was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hitchcock did.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, he did so much with, he messed around so much with like weird lighting, and that entire dream sequence was like, for a 50s movie, like, that's incredibly trippy and out there and colorful and weirdly presented. It's as well,
so
the
good.
film is, the film is so incredibly cleverly written. Like, it's above and beyond most thrillers and suspense movies.
Even
like
today.
Yeah, even today, yes.
True.
That's my first impressions of it. I have, as we'll get into more, I have some issues with the movie, but as we delve deeper into it, we'll discuss that as we go.
Yeah, I mean,
but it's very good.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's absolutely, it's Vertigo, you guys. Like, it's very hard to escape this film. Even if you haven't seen it, you've definitely at least have heard of it. It's very, very interesting. You actually, as a matter of fact, I mean, if I were to talk about, for example, where it places any kind of top 100 lists, any of those, you see Vertigo at the top there. There's a lot to discuss in terms of story. There's a lot to discuss in terms of visuals, camera techniques, editing techniques, script writing, everything. When this film first came out, actually, it wasn't a critical success because you saw it is experimental. It's not what people are used to, and if you go into it with a certain expectation of what you're going to see, you're going to feel taken aback, and you're going to feel a little bit like, what am I watching? But it's also captivating.
I have to say that, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been trying to watch Vertigo for a very long time. For some reason, every time I try to, it just doesn't work out. I ended up watching, obviously, the first film I watched was Psycho, just like I said. And then I ended up watching a very weird second movie, I guess, for Hitchcock for me was Dial M for Murder. It's such a good film. And I thought that was a really cool one. And then that's when, you know how you said, like, you kind of get addicted to the style and you want to watch more. So that's like right after that, I watched The Birds. And again, like, The Birds was very different from Dial M for Murder, but Dial M for Murder and Psycho were very similar. So I was really excited, and everybody was telling me, "Dude, go watch Vertigo. Vertigo is great." And
One of those people are me, yelling literally every couple
correct.
of minutes.
and like I really tried, but it never happened. So when I finally got around to it and I put it on and I started watching it. Obviously the mystery and, you know, not knowing who this woman is she possessed by somebody dead? Like, let's pause there for a second. Like, that's already pretty weird for a movie in the 50s. Okay.
Yeah.
A woman being possessed by a dead person and hiring a PI to go after her to see what's going on. and then it keeps getting weirder and weirder and more twisted and more mysterious. It was brilliant, and I thought that was very, very similar to Dial M for Murder. No, like there's just this like one clue that sort of like brings everything together.
That's a Hitchcock thing, though. Like, I mean, he does it in different ways, but there's always like these little dots and clues from the beginning of the film. That here's the thing: Hitchcock is deliberate about letting you know about what you need to pay attention to in the beginning, but you don't know where it's all gonna go. But he make sure that it's in the back of your mind. He's great at that kind of setup. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think one thing, if we can jump into some of the topics, I mean, this movie also deals a lot with the ideas of feminism, misogyny, because there's a dichotomy between three women, really. It's Madeline and oh geez, what's her Midge, and the alter ego, right? The alter ego for Madeline, right? The actress.
Judy.
What was her name? Costella?
Judy.
Castella?
Judy, Madeline, and Midge.
Well, yeah, and then she was pretending to be a dead person.
That one.
Carletta, Stella, something like that.
So there are four. Well, like there are four women going back. Actually, it's like four female personalities. And if you notice, like that ghostly, expressionless, sort of the typical expectation of what a beautiful woman is, of who you'd fall in love with, was that sort of that possessed by Carletta, like a damsel in distress, look like she's so placid and like, oh, her face, like that. That if you watch a lot of movies in the 50s and you compare to what Alfred Hitchcock was really doing in that movie, he was over exaggerating her behavior, because that was a lot of what women were expected to behave like in society in the 50s.
I mean,
like you're kind of modern, you're out and about, but you're just kind of delirious all the time. Even the artwork at the time presented women as this delirious damsel in distress. Whereas you see as Mitch, she's a career woman from the get-go. Opening scene, not opening scene, second to opening scene. Career woman, bright colors, designer, saying what's on her mind, not afraid to challenge. She turned down the proposal, or the engagement, like she broke it up. They're trying to show you like a sort of a contrast between all these kind of personalities of women, and I thought that was a really, really interesting play for Alfred Hitchcock.
Absolutely,
what's much more dynamic than all his other films.
That's
what's funny is
go ahead, Neil.
What's funny is I thought Midge being the most decent, I guess, of the women, right? The four women, right? Midge, Judy, what was her name? Astor's wife, Madeline, and then obviously having the dead spirit. The main character fell in love with three of them, except for Midge. And Midge was like the best. Actually, she was the best option for him. And like he completely ignored her and went after the other three, right? And I found that to be really point of that movie, right?
Okay.
Yeah, no, and
whoa,
okay. Here we go.
Connection
So
with
no. Here we go. So
guys,
okay.
I'm gonna mute my.
Okay.
I just wanted to say that, add on to that, one of my favorite parts about the movie is Jimmy Stewart and the character of John Ferguson, because it presents this weird sort of contrast. Like Jimmy Stewart's delivering all this dialogue like his usual wholesome self, but when you really think about what's going on and what's being said, John Ferguson's a really creepy guy, and he's like, at some point you could interpret it as him taking advantage of this very mentally ill woman.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Well, it is.
Well, all right.
potential
So
psychological thriller.
here's
Sorry, Razz,
all right,
go ahead.
all right. I am about to unleash. I have so much
Oh,
to
wow.
say.
Oh,
I have
Lord.
so much to say. I'm gonna try not to. No, we'll keep this as a discussion. I don't want to turn it into a lecture, but I have so much to say. Okay, so you guys are talking about the women in his life. Well, when we take a few steps back and look at a Vertigo and ask the question, what is the movie actually about? When we ask the question thematically, what is it about? Well, it's about a lot of things, about identities, about obsession, unhealthy obsession, psychological obsession, our fear of the dead, our relationship with the dead, which represents the relationship with the past. This is all over. This is what you were talking about, Phoenix, with the script writing, how ahead of its time it is, because it's so complex and multi-layered, and it's talking about a lot of things. So about the women, so one of the main overrunning theme that keeps repeating in the film is the fallen woman, right? The concept of the woman who has fallen out of society's eyes, right? The scarlet letter, right? So when they tell you this, and the story of the ghost, the first woman, the first woman, like chronologically speaking, of the women that we see, the ghost lady, is that she had an affair with a man. And remember, back then, the conservative society, she had an affair with a man, and he took her son and cast her aside, right? So she became a fallen woman, cast out of society, walking around like a crazy person, asking for her child, and then eventually she literally falls and dies by jumping from the church and dying. And all the women he's obsessed with are that. So like we have literally Madeline, who is just literally obsessed with falling off of things because she's haunted by the ghost. We find out later that's fake. She's haunted by the ghost. The first time he interacts with her is when she literally falls into the bay, right? And then eventually his trauma comes from the fact that she fell from the tower and he couldn't save her. And then we have Judy. Judy is the fallen woman in terms of like the two of them combined give you Carlotta, give you the ghost. Judy is a fallen woman in a societal term. She lives alone. She ran away from home. She was having an affair with Elster, we find out later, right? That's how he got her to do the things, to kill the wife, and he had an affair with her. So she's not morally right. She literally was part of covering up a murder. So she's also a fallen woman. And she's fallen for him, and that's why she's willing to go through all these lengths and not run away and put herself at risk by staying with him and continuing this lie. So that's kind of the main theme. Or when you talk about Vertigo and why critics now in hindsight love it so much, is because it is all about the relationship between men and women from the point of view of the male gaze, right? There's a lot of conversations about masculinity and what it means. You were talking about Jimmy Stewart, that how he's a man. He was a big male lead, he's not like he's not like a flimsy guy. He's like supposed to be like a leading man, but he's literally like doing one of these, like the film starts. Yeah. We lost Phoenix. He's a fallen woman.
They show
hopefully we'll be back.
With the vertigo being his psychological condition, it's like they show you he's weakened,
feminine, like the typical woman going like and like on her fainting chair, you know what I mean? Yeah. He's literally like the first scene we see him interact with Midge is a total role reversal where he's falling and she holds him like he holds Madeline later on. So meeting this falling woman who's falling a lot harder than him kind of reaffirms his masculinity and brings back the power that he needs, because he definitely feels weak. He's forced to retire even though he doesn't want. Let's bring him in. Admit. So that's the big thing. That's the toxic relationship between the two of them, and it's a big commentary on the toxic relationship between all men and women. We all know guys who become obsessed with women, and the thing is, whatever the woman they're obsessed with, including his woman that he's obsessed with, she's a construct. That's not what a real woman is, that's not real. She's just a facade of the damsel in distress that needs rescuing, when in fact that's why Midge is there. Midge is what is real. A real woman with a real personality, with independent life, who could stand with him side by side. But men are rarely obsessed with that because, well, most of the time they're intimidated by that. I would know. And I think also if you look at it in a meta way, I feel like it's Alfred Hitchcock's commentary on himself and the construct of women that he's built throughout his films in the 20 years before this movie came out, since the 30s, which is the beautiful bombshell blonde perfect woman. He's telling people that I made her, you know, and like I love the line he says in the end when they're like fighting in the tower and he's fighting with Judy and he tells her, did he teach you what to say? Did he dress you up? Did he, you know what I mean? That's literally what Hitchcock did for 20 years for this film. Create this beautiful, perfect, bombshell blonde woman and reinforcing that unrealistic image in society and making men swoon and chase after these women who don't really exist. And it really messes up their perception of what the perfect woman is. I mean, when you look at Madeline, how she's played by Judy, she's flawless. She's beautiful. She has this ethereal glow. She's like walking in a dream, you know. The fact that she's like crazy, you know.
She doesn't even smile or crack a frown. That's like that's the beauty of watching it again. I got to notice the details I missed the last time. That
I didn't notice that.
It's so precise how he makes sure that Mitch, for example, if you compare the two characters together, whereas Madeline versus Judy, you start to see more of expression and body movements and twists and turns and voluptuosity and there's some stuff in there I don't want to get into, but with Mitch, you see her really upset and you see her really happy and you see her angry and
she's
like,
herself. She has an identity. She's not just an imaginary construct. She's a real woman. She's a real human being.
Perfectly controlled. There was something else you just touched on it, honestly, Razz. Again, going back to the idea of like being vulnerable. You know what I mean? And the psychological exploration of that. This movie is deeply psychological, and I think with any movie that's deeply psychological, critically it would face a lot of pushback, which is what happened at the time. But now that we know better and we're past those hurdles, that I feel it's become a much more accepted movie. But even for us, like I can see watching it again how it was unnerving, maybe going through the first. I felt the movie was literally two halves. Yeah. Right?
Sure.
So the first half was unnerving, kind of going through that pace. And then later on, when you start to see in the second half things unravel quickly, it's almost you can't catch up with it, and you start to understand it's like the movie is a visual personification of what Vertigo really feels like.
Makes you feel like you're falling.
And I should know I've had vertigo several times.
Yeah, it makes you feel like you're falling, you know. That's the feeling. It's that unsettling. And even the ending is like that. The ending, a lot of people feel like the ending is very abrupt, but it's literally like you fell out of the movie. Like it's over.
And it's over.
Yeah.
I mean, remember in the beginning of the movie, he was saying it's like she was saying to get over your vertigo, it's like you need a very strong traumatic experience to get you out of that, and that's literally what happens to him at the end. He gets over his vertigo with something incredibly traumatic. You know.
And it's there, like, and it's also like in a sense, it's his obsession with the past is what keeps getting recycled. You're talking about like the film dealing with psychological concepts. The biggest psychological concept is a Freudian one, which is the repetition. What is it called? Repetition something. There's a Freudian thing, repetition contemplation or something, where like in dreams we are sort of, our brains are wired in a way to keep repeating patterns, psychological patterns, and that's why a lot of times we dream the same dream, because our brain is wired that way. So we repeat our own mistakes, sort of, right, as humans in our nature. If somebody knows it, let me know in the comment section. It's repetition something complex. I forgot. Anyway, I didn't study psychology. The entire time, every character is sort of, especially him, it's all about the past being haunted by the past, right? There's the whole actual haunting by the past, but he's haunted. He has vertigo because he watched another officer fall to his death, and it created trauma, and he's haunted by that. He's trying to escape that, and then like he's falling in love with this woman who's haunted by her past and needing to save her, supposed to save him from his, like you said, vulnerability by rescuing a more vulnerable creature, but then he doesn't, and then he's haunted by that to the point of obsession. And then when he finds before he finds Judy, he's walking around searching for her. He can't let it go. He's walking around all the places places
Yeah.
she used to go, haunting her again, haunted by his past, unable to let it go. And then eventually when he finds Judy, his obsession becomes with turning Judy into that past. And this also, when we talk about the past and being obsessed with the past, it's also kind of like being obsessed with death itself. You were talking about vertigo, because vertigo, like when you really think about it, psychologically, what is the fear of vertigo? It's the fear of falling to your death, into a void.
Yeah.
And this is reflected when, I'm going to let you talk about the visuals, Yasser, but it's reflected by those spirals, the spirals. They're literally what vertigo is. It's like falling into the void, right? Going down the drain. And if
spiraling out of control.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when you see the image of the man when he falls from the roof in the beginning of the film, he has this like spiral, his body is in sort of a spiral, and then that image keeps repeating, again, repetition. That image keeps repeating and repeating, and eventually even in his dream. And even his love of Judy.
The hairstyles
and Neo, you will like, and the hairstyle has a spiral in it, and the flowers, it's everywhere. And there's something, Neo, you will like. If you really think about it, what he's trying to do in that last half of the film is he's trying to sleep with a dead woman. It's practically necromancy. He's trying to recreate because he never slept with her. Yeah, it's true. I know you're into necromancy.
Okay, whoa. Okay, let me speak.
D&D.
Yeah. I gotta say, when I watched the movie, obviously, there was a lot of similarities to this one, and obviously, as I mentioned, I'm a huge fan of Kubrick, and I will keep going back to that. There was huge similarities. If any of you guys have seen Lolita.
Sorry to disturb you, but it's very hard to keep an eye on the chat because there's a lot of you here. But just a very quick, Yusuf is saying compulsion, repetition compulsion. Thank you.
Compulsion.
Thank you, educated Yusuf.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's repetition compulsion. Yeah, go on.
Interesting. So what I was saying. Sorry, you want to go, Phoenix?
Oh no, you go, then I go.
Okay. So I was talking about the similarity between this movie and how it's very similar to Lolita for Kubrick. I don't know if you guys have seen Lolita. Have you? Anyone? Yeah. So I know Razz has seen it. Have you, Phoenix?
Not yet. No.
It's okay. So I'm not gonna spoil much, but it's also about a man who obsesses over a woman. Okay. Now I'm not gonna go into detail. Okay, but it's also another like disturbing aspect that is sort of made easier to watch. Okay, and there's a lot of cool parallels between I guess the things that make them different. Without giving away too much for Lolita, is that this character up until the middle of the film was not extremely likable for me, but I found him very interesting. Because he was a man that was good at what he was doing, and he was very, very smart, even though he had, certain expectations for things that he was doing. And he was kind of weird, and he was quirky, and he had the vertigo. I liked him. I liked him up until the middle of the film. And then past the middle of the film, right, the big reveal where they show us what happened, he started to get a little weird. And then towards the end of the film, he got really weird. And I started to really dislike him. Yeah. I was like thinking the whole time, like, this guy there's something off about him. Like, he became obsessed and more obsessed and more obsessed. And, that's something I found really cool, which in Lolita, where it tackles the same subject, from the beginning, you start to kind of dislike the main character.
Yeah. And I think, what's really interesting about what you say is because essentially, when you're introduced to him, he's a protagonist, right? And he's really likable and you root for him. But when he starts getting cured, literally after he goes through therapy, and I'll get into the colors later, but like he becomes himself again, you realize that his true self, because he's the detective, and detectives, and they reference it in the movie early on, obsesses over details and obsesses over finding things. But that obsession, when translated into his love for a woman, it can help you also understand why Mitch might have broken it off early on with him. Yeah. Of course, he might have not been as obsessed after what his experience, but you can see where it's coming from,
Yeah. Phoenix, I think Phoenix had something to say.
Yes.
Pardon? Go ahead.
Yes, no. Oh, yeah, no. I was actually going to talk about the theme of obsession in regards to something I didn't care for in the movie, and that's that past the film actually kind of lost me past the mental hospital when he was like catatonic. It like everything after that is neat. It's fine. It makes sense. It's clever, but it's honestly, to me, it's kind of a weak ending. The film, I think, should have ended at the mental hospital when he was catatonic. I think Midge said to the doctor, he's in love with her. He always will be. And Mozart isn't going to cure that. And then she walks off. End the film there. That's a strong ending. Because it wraps up all the themes of obsession. It doesn't give the main character this sort of he doesn't win in the end, and it's a very sad sort of tragic thing. Everything past that, just while clever, it kind of came off as slightly unnecessary in a way. That's just me. You can disagree with me if you want.
No, I hear you. I hear you. I definitely would disagree. For the sake of
Can I just add something? That's actually a common criticism that came out at the time, by the way. A lot of people felt like, why does this feel like two movies in one? But that's very deliberate because sure, absolutely. I mean, Razz, go ahead. You were going to say
because the thing is, if you remove that second half, you're going to be losing a big part of the theme. Yes, one of it, and it's not just obsession, right? It's obsession with the female construct, right? There's a construct. There's this image that has been built over the years of what the perfect woman is, and most men, or that's what the film comments, is that most men are obsessed with that image. With the image of the starlets of the 1920s and 30s, the beautiful blondes. They are the representation of perfection. They are very feminine. They're damsels in distress. They need saving. They need you. They need the man. And men get off on the fact that they are needed and they're there to save them. If you end the film where you're saying that Madeline is real, right? The fact is, what Hitchcock is trying to say, that Madeline and everything she represents is a fraud. It is not real. It's a construct that has been built by society to create a fantasy that men obsessively chase. And that's why they don't end up, their marriages fail, relationships fail, because they expect women like Midge to be Madeline. And she isn't. And then the marriage fails, just like it failed for him and Midge, because Midge is not that fantasy woman. But that fantasy woman does not exist. Even when he finds Judy, who is literally the human being that he touched before, and she's being herself, he can't touch her. He doesn't kiss her. Nothing. Until he turns her into that fantasy. Madeline. But it's a lie, right? If you remove the second part of that film,
I specifically remember that bit.
You would kill that part of the theme, and I think it's the more powerful. It's not just obsession. It's what is he obsessed with, and the commentary on it.
I don't think you'd lose. I don't think you'd lose that. I don't think you'd lose the point. The words. I don't think you'd lose that. That point that theme, if you cut the film where I'm saying, because words.
No, because if she dies where you're saying, or if the film ends when she dies, then how do we have the commentary on how, even if you bring back the woman, like even when he finds the actual woman, he can't love her because she no longer represents that imaginary fantasy?
I mean, look. Sorry, you want to go, Phoenix?
I will try to go. I will try
so,
to.
Look, I think past the middle of the film, the film did lose me a little bit as well. because I felt like it was going somewhere, and then it sort of like completely shifted. Again, I was a big fan of the mystery. And again, I'm going to go back to the fact that I thought this was going to be like Dial M for Murder. A lot of mystery. I know it really
it's
isn't.
not.
So I really thought it was going to be a big mystery film. And I even like had a lot of flashbacks to Chinatown, if you guys have seen Chinatown, for Polanski.
That's more North by Northwest is what you're looking for.
Sure, absolutely. But then, that's what I thought this film was going to be. And up until the middle of the film, that's what it sort of was. And then past the middle, it shifted and it became about the obsession. And now he's obsessed with that weird thing that he was in love with, whether it was, because it was weird. She was a woman that was beautiful, but she was also possessed by some random other dead woman, right?
Yeah. And, I think what I want to try to say is you don't lose that idea of being obsessed with something not real if you cut the film where I am saying, because throughout that first hour and a half, I think, or so, John Ferguson becomes obsessed essentially with another man's wife. He becomes obsessed with wanting something he can't have. And
it's a good point.
Yeah, and it over time combined that with his crippling fear of heights. She offs herself, and he can't deal with that, and he snaps and goes catatonic. Like his obsession with wanting this woman he can't have when Midge is right there. That's a woman he can have. She's very real and she's an amazing person. Like it all.
Yeah.
That's.
But I get what you're saying. But being obsessed with a woman you can't have is very different than being obsessed with a woman who doesn't exist. With the idea of a woman who doesn't exist, you wouldn't get that there.
When I initially watched the film, I had the opposite reaction. For me, I was like, well, this seems like a very typical Hitchcock film. It's okay. And I felt, I was neither excited or bored up until, when he's at the psychiatrist or whatever, when he's being treated.
The ward. Yeah.
At the ward, when it shifts, and I was like, oh, there's more. Oh, wait a minute. What's going on? He's cured. That got me excited. So for me, I had the opposite thing. I'm like, oh, what's really going on in this film? Like, because I felt up until that point, I felt there were so many questions unanswered. To me, the film wouldn't have been complete. It would have been okay. It would have a typical avant-garde ending.
Yeah.
And I would have said, that's very,
film noir.
Alfred.
Would have been a very film noir ending.
Yeah.
But I felt, and it would have been, like you were saying, it wouldn't have been terrible. But for me, it would have been, I guess it's hard to separate the feeling you have watching a lot of Alfred Hitchcock films, but it would have felt like a basic Alfred Hitchcock film that, doesn't explore beyond what he usually explores and plays with, which are all very exciting themes. But I thought was a breakout film.
But
one question I do want to ask, maybe because I'm wondering if what we're commenting on and criticizing about this very jarring split or two movies in one, how it reflects on the book that this is based on, because apparently it's based on a book. I've never read it. I don't know the title.
It's a French book.
Yeah, so I don't know if that's something you get in the book itself. Like, is that a feeling that people get when they read the book? Like halfway through the book, it's like two, shifts. It might be something related to the original story as well. So I don't want to throw too much weight on it.
I just want to go into the comment section because there's a bit of a discussion about what we're talking about, and I want to see what people are saying.
Sure.
Because
Lord.
Ahmed says, I don't like the ending either, but I guess the concept of vertigo had to play a bigger role in the movie. Yusuf says, the pacing of the end, the very last scene, made me unintentionally burst out laughing. The nun shows up, woman falls. Nun is like, God have mercy on her soul. End. I know. For me, I feel like it's ripping the carpet from under you. Yusuf says, if you get rid of the second half, it would make the movie way more generic and not the classic that it is. That's what Yusuf thinks.
Sure.
Ahmed says, the fact that he got obsessed and fell in love with her while following her around is also nonsensical. So I agree with Phoenix. So Phoenix, you have somebody who agrees with you. Yusuf is arguing with him and says, I don't think it's nonsensical.
But by the way,
Yusuf
like
says,
that.
hold on. Yusuf says, Yusuf says, I don't think it's nonsensical, Ahmed. That's how a lot of stalkers are in real life. I personally have been stalked so many times, so I know how. No, nobody has ever. No, but I'm a midge, guys. I'm 100% the midge. You know, like 100%. Building bras that look like bridges. Yeah, 100%. Look.
Let me say something about the end of the film. And sort of like the technique that what's his name uses, Hitchcock.
I guess you're wrong, Neo.
What?
You worked for a second. You were like, let me say something about the end of the film. The cut.
Just because I don't wanna jump the people hating on the ending thing, because I personally I found that nun showing up and her falling a little weird as well. Like I didn't see it coming. And then it just showed up all of a sudden, and I was like, "Wait, what? Why did she fall?
Because she's
what
a
happened?"
fallen woman.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
Guys,
now, one thing.
The nuns' appearances in these films track them. Okay, maybe because I saw it twice. Again, you're noticing their nuns appear in this film, if I recollect correctly, 3 times.
Yeah, they represent chastity.
Yeah, chastity. A chance with the savior and your ultimate end. But you guys are segueing to something I really want to talk about before it hits 9 o'clock.
No, this is going longer than 9. We already started late.
Oh wow!
And we haven't,
guys,
I get your coffee. We haven't even talked about technicals. I haven't talked about blocking, color, camera.
We should.
No way. No, we're just talking stories for the last hour. But that's the power of a Hitchcock movie, man. That's it.
Relax to this. I won't jump the gun.
Ahmed Sulaiman says, but he is a stalker. But he's not a stalker. He is a detective. No, he is a man.
He becomes a stalker.
He's obsessed.
No, listen. I want to tell you something. Maybe you guys experience this if you ever recall a lot of the sort of love stories that your grandparents tell you about, whether it's them or people that they know. If you recall, and I recall my grandmother talking a lot about this, that the way men behaved in real life, 50s, 40s, whatever, towards women.
Yeah.
I
mean, till now, but now we criticize it, we look down on it. It was the norm.
But Yasser, you have to also think culturally, right? I'll talk about my culture. Y'all know how I feel about where I come from. Not the biggest fan, okay? We are very much the 50s of the United States, right? We're just starting to open up. We're just starting to understand that there is a world outside of our 4 walls, but we're still very conservative and holding on to our, previously held conceptions, religious conceptions, societal conceptions, like they're like, I don't want to let go, right? And it's a very male, chauvinistic, aggressive culture and society, Arab society. Till now, in college, in rural areas, the way men chase after the neighbor girl in their neighborhood, in their village, the way that they chase after the beautiful chaste woman, the nun, chaste woman walking around, and he believes that she is the image of perfection because no man has touched her, no man has spoken with her, she's the perfect woman. And then he looks like this. She looks like this. She has the perfect body. She has the perfect obedience and attitude. And she needs me to take care of her, put a roof over her shoulder. In Arabic, astur alayha, which is literally, to save her and cover her with my male protectiveness, right? That's literally what this movie is about. It's that kind of male gaze. They just stare at these women. They don't talk to them. They go talk to their parents and ask for the girl's hand, and that's how they get married. It's still happening right now in 2020. It's still happening, you know. So that's what this is about. And back then, whether you're a detective or whether you're a grocery owner or whether, it doesn't matter. This is something instinctual and culturally embedded in the men of the time.
Globally. It was a global thing.
In the men of the time, especially back then, in a more conservative society, and now in our society, which is very conservative and reflects the 1950s a lot more than the current, you know,
I mean,
Western society.
like my dad said something very interesting about when he married my mom. It was so, even though she was like within the neighborhood of where they were living in Pakistan and all that stuff, it was just like, he told, the expectation of my dad was to pick this placid girl from the neighbor, from the this, that. But what he liked about my mom is that she freaking protested in high school. So the 60s and the 70s are when men started to want to see women behave in a different light and started to aspire. That it only happened in
the
the
women empowerment movement started around the same time, you know.
Yeah. Sure. So they're no longer a damsel in distress.
And
that's not real.
Like, before that,
it's not a real thing. Yeah. The damsel in distress thing is not a real thing. Either
but that's the
and even women who put it on now, they're pretending. Once they marry you, they're gonna yell at you every day. They're not gonna want you to help them. They're gonna be like, "Why didn't you?" They turn into monsters. Like, it's not real. It's not real.
So, do we move on from the theme and go into like a little bit about the techniques?
How interesting though.
It absolutely is. Yes.
Okay. All right. Fine.
I just want to talk about because we were talking about how the story was a mystery, and then it was about the obsession. So. That middle point when after he finds Judy, and then he takes her to the apartment and asks her out, and she says yes, and she closes the door. She sits down and she starts writing that letter. Her writing that letter and revealing the entire mystery, to me was a little like, wait, what?
I have something.
Why are we hearing it? Like, I would have rather discovered it.
And then she just tears it all up.
Yeah.
Correct.
But decides against leaving.
That's what Hitchcock does.
No.
He shows you something, takes it away, and then expects you to watch. At least that's how I feel. And then expects you to watch the reaction of the two characters when one of them knows something that the other one doesn't.
Yeah, I'll tell you something about that letter. So first of all, the reveal happening at this point in the film is Hitchcock's decision. We know that, right? The reason why,
of course.
This is quoted by him. The reason why he chose to reveal that she is in the whole, like the truth there and then, is because he wanted the audience to feel and understand Judy's dilemma. Judy makes a choice, right? Her choice from the second half of the film is that she is willing to change herself because she wants to be loved. That's her tragedy. She is also obsessed with a lie, which is the man coming and loving her for just loving her, right? Just being loved and being wanted.
Yeah.
All right? That's what women are obsessed with. We want to be loved. We want to be admired. We want to be chased, okay? We are willing to change our hair color. Forget this. In real life, we change our hair color. We go to the gym. We change how we talk. We make sure we say the right things. And a lot of women, if they are in a toxic relationship with an overbearing man, they will change their personality and they will adhere to what he wants me to be, just so I'm not alone, right? That's her tragedy. So
this is an exaggeration of that.
Of course. He needed us to know that she is changing herself, that she's becoming a fantasy because the fact that she fell in love with him. She's the fallen woman in that sense. However, he actually he didn't want to have that letter in there. Once the film was shot, and they had a screening or a review screening at Paramount Studios, he decided to remove that letter, and he wanted us to find out bit by bit. Like he was going to reveal it, was going to get revealed, but not by her reading the whole letter. By us seeing the clothes inside the closet, right? Her suit and stuff. It's revealed, and there's a flashback, and we see the flashback, but there's no her reading the actual letter and how she feels so literally. And it's one of the things I don't like about the film. I feel like it's too literal. Like we are told exactly how she feels. But he removed it, and they went and re-edited, and they actually removed it, and the film flowed better for Alfred Hitchcock. And then when he showed it again to the producers, one of the studio execs Even then, Yasser, they were still poking their fingers in the film. One of the studio execs was
were.
like, no, put the letter in there because people are not going to understand. So he actually didn't want that exposition in there.
So
and he was
annoying.
forced to put it in there. So there you go.
But, I mean, I'm not going to defend it or speak against it. I mean, because, you know, if it was a creative choice, it would have been great. But I understand from an artist's point of view, it being forced might have been annoying. However, executives at the time had a point, because up until this point, there were very, very, very few Hollywood type films that take the perspective of a woman looking on to a relationship with a man. This movie, what's really important about the equal split between the first half and the second half is something you guys alluded to before. The first half is about the, you know, Stewie, what's his name? Steve? I forget his name. Stuart. His perspective. It's the man's perspective.
Scotty.
The second half of the film is the woman's perspective.
Yes.
Hence, my segue into color, the dominance of red in the beginning versus the dominance of green.
Green in the end.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think that reveal.
First half, second half, excuse me, and the importance of blue, yellow, and gray and black, which we will get into. But
yeah, I mean, I think that reveal did three things in the movie.
purple.
Sure. So the first thing that reveal did was obviously it created this source of suspense of how are these characters gonna feel about each other when you know something and the other one doesn't. The second thing that it did obviously was to give us a little more perspective about Judy and how she feels. And the other thing that it did, which I found really interesting later in hindsight after I watched the film, was the moment where Hitchcock was like, okay, wait, let's take this mystery. It's not about the mystery. We'll put that aside. Now watch what's going to happen with this guy and this woman and how he's going to be obsessed with her. Okay, so I found that to be really cool. It's clearly like a director's hand where he's choosing to not play into the mystery because you're so used to that style about Hitchcock.
Subverting expectations, in a sense.
Subverting expectations.
The only thing that bothered me, not from a creative perspective, but I understand it, given that it's really the truth of the time, is how Ernestel or the husband, the gray suit, what's his name? Elster.
Gavin Astor. That was his name, right? Esther or something?
Elster.
Elster.
Got away with everything. That actually bugged me a lot. But then this is not about, yay, everybody wins in the end. It's the truth. There are people with power and influence who get away with it.
Well, the thing I didn't like, other than the letters, so since we're all saying what we didn't like, I mean, I don't, what I don't like about it
but I have a way to change your mind about the letter, by the way.
The thing I don't like is actually, I actually don't like Jimmy Stewart in this. I think that it was a miscast because he's too old. I really feel like the fact that he's so old does not really sell the obsessive young man being kind of like driven by his obsession with this woman. Like, he should have been younger. She's so young. She's 24. He's like, what, 45 in this? It just, that's one of the things that I wish, that's my personal opinion, I wish it was a younger person. And even when we talk about all these like men obsessing and chasing over women and chasing over an idea of a woman and not settling down is a very young man's obsession. I feel like the age, fine, we can disagree. The age difference between the two of them is really kind of, does not sell me psychologically on them.
Can I explain to you why it made sense for a man in his 40s? Although I don't get the blonde hair, but because it made him look weird. So I don't like the way
he was trying to make him look younger because he was.
But he wasn't playing a younger person. We know he was experienced. We had old college roommates. We're forward in our life. He was deliberately a man in his 40s because men in their 40s who have had a career and have had a lot going on experience midlife crisis. Okay, and this guy was a typical guy going through a midlife crisis. I mean, I get that maybe because I see people around my age group do that. I mean, I'm not particularly in a midlife crisis. Maybe these comic books are a reflection of that. I don't know. But like men in a midlife crisis want to relive youth. Men in a midlife crisis look at look at the young, beautiful woman as hope. You see all these stories of these older men divorcing their wives or cheating on their wives with a younger woman and having this hopeful, obsessive reinvention of their life just if they get this woman in their life. I mean, it's so common, and it was big in Hollywood. So he was really going at it with even men at the time, because a lot of men at the time did that. They were married to women for a long time. They get into their 40s and they're like, F this life. I want that young, hot chick who's going to make me feel alive again.
I get that. But usually that's an opportunity that presents itself. The chase, the kind of chase that happens in this film, this is like nitpicking at this point, but I don't buy it as much from somebody of not only his age, but also his stature. He's not like a manic person, you know what I mean? He's very like, and that's why there's something feels off about it. Yeah, his performance. I think that he is miscast.
His delivery. Okay, I see what you mean.
I think he is miscast. Because he's James Stewart. And remember back then, stars sell the movie, and it was always common for Hitchcock to use him in the film, so it's kind of part of it. Kind of like sometimes Tim Burton should not have cast Johnny Depp. Sometimes it was brilliant, and sometimes it was like, dude, get somebody else, bro. You know what I mean? So that's how I feel. Yeah. I need to segue into visuals very quickly before we wrap up, because we are at the hour mark.
Yeah, let's do it.
So I know the reason why I want Yasser to talk about it. I mean, I can talk about it, but Yasser is a graphic designer. I know you're a graphic designer. You're also a comic book artist, so you know how this stuff works. So I want you to give us your perspective on the use of color. So we're going to address three things. We're going to address color, we're going to address camera and blocking, and we're also going to address a little bit of the sound and the music. Somehow we're going to do this in the next 15 minutes. So you have 2 minutes on the clock. Go.
Okay. So where do I start with color?
Challenge accepted.
Being that this movie is all about psychology, color and psychology are everything. And in design, everything we do, when you're designing anything, whether it's in film, I mean, all you guys know it if you're in the arts.
Get to the point.
Color, especially now that we have color. Well, first of all, contrast. So like value, like gray versus white versus black, and values of gray. All of them are important, and then color and hue is the next level. So psychologically, green means multiple things, and every color has like a positive spectrum and a negative spectrum. So red has like passion, love, has rage, obsession, right? Green has envy, has nature, has mysticism.
Poison.
Toxicity.
Poison. Toxicity.
Toxicity as well. There's a lot of those themes are played here. We know a lot about the green and red. There are a lot of videos about that, so I'm not going to talk too much about that. But there are other color combinations in this film that were just amazing. I mean, we know that green is basically Madeline / Judy's color, specifically Judy. Yeah. And it's more muted in the beginning because it's like Judy masked as Madeline, so the colors are kind of more muted. If you notice, her car is kind of
it's green. The first time we see her in the restaurant, she's sitting in that restaurant and she's wearing a green dress.
That's the only time it's an emerald green, because he's not yet sold on her until she hits a profile. When she hits that profile, his red overpowers, and the green kind of, with that contrast is beautiful. But everything after that, that powerful emerald green starts to mute down. You'll notice the car is an olive green. And everything is kind of around this olive muted green until she becomes Judy again, and it's that pow emerald green again, right? Yeah. And
I thought that her black dress with the green stripes, I guess, and the colors being a little muted, it gave me a little bit of a. It was like snake skin. Okay, I mean, I don't know if that makes sense. So I felt like the film was trying to tell us that she's no good. Like, there's foul play in this woman.
Absolutely, and that's where black comes in. That's why you see black in the end, because black in the end is like, we're in the dark zone. Nothing about this is good, right? The nun, the sky, everything was almost black, right? But I don't want to get too much into red and green because there's so much about it. But what I do want to get into is the use of, I'll start with the simpler one, purple. So purple comes up not just during his Vertigo flashback when he's in the hospital and all those things. it also is when she's in her room, everything's green and she's dressed in the purple dress, that lilac dress. That's very deliberate, because purple and green as a combination, while they have a lot of positive attributes in nature, if you see other movies like, I don't know, Princess and the Frog comes to my brain, it's used a lot in like witchcraft, mysticism,
the Hulk.
The Hulk. Like it's got a dreary kind of feel. And
Yes.
purple is, there's another thing about purple, besides it being royal, there's another thing about lilac specifically. It says psychologically, people who are drawn to the color purple are torn between two halves of things. And she is specifically torn personally between who she really is and her love for him and the truth and so on. So she's living a dichotomy. And purple is about that dichotomy. Another thing,
by the way, even the woman, the original ghost lady, she's wearing a purple dress in the. I have it up here. You guys can see it, but I have it up. She's wearing there's a very beautiful like mirror shot between the woman inside the painting of the frame, where she's wearing the purple dress and the necklace, of course, and the background is green. I'm putting it up now, and then later there's a shot of her sitting in the room where the green is coming from outside. She's silhouetted and she's wearing that purple, and it like those shots, like the colors are almost the exact same match, which is pretty cool.
And it's him seeing her again in that light, but it's also, it's like danger, right?
And it's actually when she's alone when she's doing that. Before he comes in, she's sitting in the darkness.
I think we lost everyone.
No, we're here.
Oh, okay. I can't see the other two screens.
Go on.
But what I was saying also that really stood out for me was the blue and yellow. Okay, so yellow is Midge's color for sure, right? In the beginning, her apartment, her stool, her wardrobe, it's all yellow. It's bright, it's excitement, it's joy, it's clarity, right? She's clear. And then but slowly her yellow starts to fade away as she starts to contemplate who she's lost, as she starts to move her more into a mother persona versus a person who was once my friend and a person who I loved.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yellow plays another role, and then blue is melancholy. And the thing about, and that's why the entire sort of ward, everyone is kind of covered in blue and sadness and all that stuff. And the letter itself is blue, by the way.
Is it?
Because that is and it's a melancholy moment. And gray, which nobody talks about, is just mystery and treachery and غموض, like kind of like lack of clarity. We're in a situation where things aren't clear. But that's it. That's all I have to say. I don't know where everyone else is.
We kind of dropped them on the call. I mean, why do you think that Hitchcock was actually like he all of these colors were used on purpose for those kinds of feelings? Do you think that
it was too deliberate?
Is it that deliberate? Because that's what people argue. Like, are we overanalyzing, or is it actually that deliberate?
I think, look, there are things that you can possibly overanalyze, but not color. Because don't forget, the way Hitchcock made it big from black and white to color is that he really, really enjoyed playing with color. And and there are some articles I read where he really dove into the psychological aspects of this story before making the film. And if you go into psychology, and like you said, you're going to read about Freud and this and that, you're going to get into color. So this for him was an opportunity to play with color in order to maximize the psychological themes of the film. So, and it looks deliberate because it's all very staged color. There's not, it's staged in a nice way. But usually, like today, when you see a lot of color in film, it's just splashed on and it seems accidental here and there, or it just overpowers a setting. Like you see a frame and it's all green, or like you were saying before, like blue with orange. There's no kind of deliberate pinpointing of where color goes. And here things are very deliberate. In some scenes, maybe not as much as others, but there are some scenes where the red and the gray, or the green and the gray and the brown and the green slowly different, like it's all it plays into key points within the story's progression.
But why do you think that it turns black in the end? For what purpose does it turn black in the end? Especially like her black dress really stands out in the end.
Yeah. Well, fade to black. Okay, we're coming to the end. Fade to black. Black is the color of darkness. Black is also the color of, contrast, right? Anything put against black is clear, right? But to me, I don't want to dive too much into it, but to me, it was the dark end that is coming. Everything is clear and everything is dark. And this woman actually isn't, even though she's independent, she's coming to her dark end. Like her life, her choices aren't going to lead to a positive end for her. They end to something black. And actually, people think it's a happy ending for him. It's not.
No,
it was
it's
also
horrible.
a dark ending because he was also engulfed in that blackness. It's just that she happened to have fallen. That's it. That's all I kind of want to say of this. There are a bunch of comments.
Yeah. Can you read through the comments for me?
It's a way of life. Yeah. There you go. Look at this. This is a very black scene. But is his tie green there? Because that means he's in love with her. You know what I mean?
He's consumed by her. At some point, he's wearing a green shirt.
Like one thing I'll say, like the red lipstick, I mean, that was the fashion of the time. So I wouldn't say red lipstick. You know what I mean? But if you look at the back, just the decor, green shelf, red lamp. I mean, it was just injecting the characters' colors wherever they could without it looking tacky.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what they were playing with. Hitchcock was playing with, or the art director, or so on and so forth.
Yeah.
At the time.
That's very interesting. I mean, I'm just trying to get the guys back on the chat.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what happened to them.
No, I'm just trying to save them. Let's talk about a little bit. I want you to talk about, since you are a Hitchcock connoisseur, I want you to comment a little bit on what Hitchcock usually does and what he's really, really good at, and how do we see it here in Vertigo? How does he actually stand out as a director?
One thing I said in the beginning, I think the most thing that I appreciate about Hitchcock, okay, is he plants setup. Setup is so beautiful with Hitchcock. Hitchcock is the master of setup in film. Setting up without you feeling like you know what the end is going to be. He makes sure that from the get-go, everything that you kind of need to know about the film is actually there, but it all comes to light towards the end. And somehow I feel that people miss that maybe with Vertigo because there's no light at the end of this tunnel,
Maybe.
But then again, with Psycho, it was the same thing. It's just though with Psycho, because the scene was so much simpler in the end with that. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't seen it.
No, we're spoiling, dude. Spoil away. This is a discussion for those who have seen it.
His endings tend to have also a subtlety to them, right? So Psycho, the way it ends with the guy himself, the murderer, and he's smiling, ever so slowly, which is a classic scene, but it was so simple, it was easy to grasp. Maybe in Vertigo, there was so much going on in the end that it wasn't as simple, it was much more complex. But overall, Alfred Hitchcock is all about the setup, and he's all about placing clues. So it's a real detective story where you feel you are a detective analyzing the story, analyzing the events of the story, and you enjoy discovering the end because he makes you feel you are actually discovering it with the characters, not you're watching the characters discover. You're discovering with the characters. So that to me is a really awesome thing about Alfred Hitchcock.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. And for me, it's his use of camera and his use of blocking, the way that he blocks shots. I mean, the whole time, I can't talk too much because we sort of ran out of time. But I mean, the way he blocks characters, the way he blocks the camera and frames the camera. In here, he experiments a lot with light. Phoenix was saying how experimental it is. He sort of uses light and color. Sometimes, in certain moments in the film, there's a light. Like when he first meets Madeline in the restaurant, there's a red light on the red background behind her that just goes whoop. It just turns on and off. When she emerges as Madeline again, there's this green hue on her. Every time he sees her and looks at her, a lot of the times in the beginning when he's, that long-winded chase scene, he's always looking at her through mirrors and through frames. He doesn't see the full picture because he's being deceived by a light.
It's a reflection of what...
and in the end, when he's turning her into Madeline, that image of her is reflected again. He always sees her through frames and through mirrors, and in the end, when he's making her fix her hair, he looks at her through the mirror rather than look at her in the face.
Yes, I noticed that.
Yeah, so there's a lot of that he does. He also always puts himself in his movies in a small cameo. Did you notice him in this? Do you know where his cameo is?
No, I missed it. But I thought
I'll bring it up. It's there. Yeah.
Or something?
No, it's outside on the street. I'm putting it up now that people can see it. So yeah, he walks through. He always puts himself he hides himself inside his movies, and you can spot him here as well. So yeah.
But do you see the deliberate use of green here, for example, in this image that you've put up?
Yeah.
Yeah. But by the way, Razz, off topic, this movie reminded me of Midas. Any connection? Because there's something, again, when you said the mirrors, it was something I was thinking about. It was like,
mirrors are deception.
Maybe subconsciously,
deception.
It reminded me of your use of the mirror.
But don't spoil Midas for people who haven't seen it. By the way, people who don't know what we're talking about, Midas is my short film. That's what he's talking about.
Oh yeah, Midas is Razz's short film. It's really awesome. Go see it on Vimeo and vote. Voting is still open.
Follow Midas on Facebook, and you can watch it online for the next 48 hours, and vote it in a competition. Thanks for the plug-in.
But you know, in that movie, you kind of use color. You use blue in a very specific way, and then in the end, the warm tones, the way they come in. So that's why I felt like there was a correlation. Can you talk about the camera, because there was this thing with was it pull?
Yeah, so in this film, one of the biggest inventions and its influence on cinema is the zoom dolly, or called the zolly. It's even called the vertigo shot, where the camera zooms in while dollying in and out in the opposite direction. So the background is going further away as you're getting closer to the thing. And this is obviously like one of the iconic shots of Vertigo, and it became an actual camera technique down the line in cinema. And even here, like, he used it in order to give you that feeling of like you're like falling, like you're falling, and it's been used a lot. It's most famously reused by Steven Spielberg in Jaws, when the first jaw attack happens and the main character realizes that the shark is attacking people in the water. And the way that they did it, actually, you know, like one of the toughest shots to get was that shot when they do the vertigo shot inside the tower. They couldn't do that. They couldn't move. They couldn't dolly the camera down. So what they did is they actually built a small. What do you call it? They built a small like wooden,
like kind of
they built like a wooden model of that staircase, and they put it vertically, and they put the camera and they just dollied in and out while zooming in and out to get the zoom.
You mean horizontally?
It was horizontal. Like it was horizontal on a model, not the actual staircase. That whole thing was changed, cool. By the way. The original the church, the mission where like she dies, actually is a real life mission. It's an actual real church, but the tower is not as big or as dramatic. It's actually painted on. There's so much special effects in this movie. There's a lot of special effects and use of matting and use of like really classic special effects that he was using to create really cool shots. Yeah, it's painted. That tower is painted. It's not real. The actual, like, you can look up images online that it's the same like bottom structure, but the top structure is very small. It's not as high and dramatic as it is in the film. And it actually was a bigger tower when he first visited and picked the mission to shoot in. But when they came to actually shoot, it had gone through renovation, and they made the tower smaller, and he was really upset. So he shot anyway, but then he replaced it in post production using like matting.
Wow,
and
that's such a cool
superimposing. Superimposing and things like this. So much. I mean, there was so much I wanted to talk about technicals. I have like a whole list. Like I have a whole list of things.
Go for it.
No, it's too late. We've been on for like an hour and a half. We are sort of kind of winding up. Unfortunately, we lost Neo and Phoenix.
We missed you guys.
Yeah, we lost them. They have been lost. Neo's in the comment section here, and I think Phoenix is as well. They had like some Zoom problems. So Neo says like it was used in Goodfellas, the Zolly shot. Yeah, so look, at the end of the day, like this film is we can discuss it for like hours. That's the thing, because
I just wish we saw it for the first time in our lives in this film. It would have been crazy. I think a lot of people can't appreciate it as much because we're so
critics do in hindsight though. critics do in hindsight. I mean, it's very hard to watch this film and not be affected. And I think it's a fantastic movie. In a technical sense, it's just one of the most impressive things you can ever think of. The way it's shot, the way it's framed, the blocking. You know, like for example, in that scene where Elster tells him, and this is the cool thing about Vertigo, is that it's super rewatchable, which is something I tried to do in Midas, which is make it rewatchable, put little clues and hints as to what happens. This is something that he does. If you go back, if you've seen it for the first time, go back and rewatch that scene between Elster and him, where he tells him the story, where he tells him the lie, where he's literally entrapping him. And if you look at the blocking of that scene and how it's done, there's some cool stuff with the power play and how he is always sort of in the beginning. Versus standing. Yeah, in the beginning, the whole film is just blocked so immaculately. Even the camera movements are blocked in a way.
And they're just moving. They're never.
To show how this guy is entrapping him and gaining control of him. In the beginning, you know, he's sitting behind the desk and the detective is, circling around
in the background.
He's constructing a narrative. It's not real. It's a lie, and then like he's circling around him in the desk investigating, and then he sits down, and then Elster gets up and starts circling around him like a vulture, and there's like this really cool shot of how he's sort of overpowering him, like he's in the foreground and that guy's in the background, like really high up from a low angle, like super capturing him into his facade. And even later, if you look behind them, I've put up the image now, behind him, he goes into another room when he starts talking about the possession, which is the biggest lie of all, right? When he talks about the possession, he literally goes and stands as if, go back and rewatch it, as if he's standing at a stage, right? As if he's on a stage delivering a performance. It's fake. And James Stewart's character is actually sitting on a chair. He changes position, sits on a chair and faces him like a member of the audience watching a play, watching this facade. So there's a lot here about the truth and the fabrications and lying and missed identities. I can literally talk about this for like 500 hours. But I don't think anybody's going to stay with us for 500 hours. It's been a very long discussion. But thank you very much for joining me. It's crazy. There's so much to discuss. Like I cannot.
It's an important film, so I can understand why it would go over. It's just an important movie.
It's Hitchcock, man. Guys, watch more Hitchcock movies. Really, not just Vertigo. Watch.
Your life will never
Hitchcock.
be the same.
Yeah, there is something to them. There is really something to them, and they need to be appreciated a lot more. And you'd be surprised.
We need to pull something out of the hat now, right?
Yeah, it's here.
Yeah, it doesn't show very well.
I know. I'm going to turn off my background when I do it. Yeah, so I just want to thank everybody. Thank you, Neo, very much for joining us. They're in the comment section. Phoenix is in the comment section. She says, apologies for the poor internet.
Thank you, Phoenix. So awesome to meet you.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us all the way from Canada. That's pretty cool. So he says, I love the shot in the department store where it was split between the mirror and Jimmy Stewart looking through the door. Beautiful shot. I put that up. I put that up. Yeah. There's a lot of these shots where he's looking at her through frames because he's not seeing the whole picture. Something is hidden from him. Anyway, so leave it for another Hitchcock film. Maybe we'll get another Hitchcock film. I'd be very happy. I want to talk more about Hitchcock. I didn't talk enough.
I wouldn't complain.
I didn't talk enough about his director style and things like that, but we didn't have time because we were so entranced by the themes of the movie that we can't talk about the man behind them. Imagine. So I'm going to turn off my virtual background here so we can... there it goes. Okay, so now our next movie. Is there anything like frightening in the background? No, I'm okay.
No, don't worry.
All right, so it's time for us to pick our next movie, so let's do that. Okay, so our next film from the hat is Spidey says hi. All right. Okay, there's my Urahara hat. So give us a bit of a hat. Yeah. So give me a drum roll, Yasser, please. Okay. What are we gonna watch? I have no idea. I actually have no idea.
And it is. What?
This is very interesting.
Can't see. Reservoir Dogs.
Yes.
Oh my God.
A Quentin Tarantino movie. Oh, yeah.
Tarantino.
This is on the. This is here from the top 100 films of all time. Because I have multiple lists. This is top 100 films of all time. Reservoir Dogs,
Let me
baby.
tell you, this is going to be a painful experience. Like try to make it a point not to watch a Tarantino movie more than once. I'm so sorry to all the Tarantino fans.
You know how I feel about Tarantino. A lot of people do
Yes.
know that I'm not a fan of Quentin Tarantino. Sorry to break it to you guys. And a lot of people always want to ask. They always want to ask, like, why don't you like Tarantino? What's your problem with Tarantino? Some people have asked me to make a video about why I hate Tarantino. And it's just like, I feel like once I do that, I'm going to start having some sort of flame war. However,
I'll be your hype man for that
I'll tell you
video.
what, I actually love Reservoir Dog. It's actually my favorite Tarantino film. And I think it's his best. And I know that most people disagree. I know that a lot of people feel very differently about this. But I'll tell you what, I actually really like this film. It's actually a fantastic movie. I love Reservoir Dogs. It's definitely one of his best. And it doesn't contain many of his flaws that I'm not a fan of. But anyway, we can bring that up a little bit if we have time to talk about that in the discussion.
I think it's worth watching again.
But yeah,
I mean, I'm just
that's
not a Tarantino fan, so I have nothing to compare it to. I mean, it's better than Pulp Fiction for me and Kill Bill, but fine.
Let's watch it first and see, and we'll talk about
anything
it.
is better than Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Anything ever created in history by anyone is better than that movie.
Yeah, yeah. Like it's bad. We need to get.
Sorry,
we need
throw
to
that
get.
in there.
Okay,
right.
let's see what people are saying. So Phoenix is excited. Quentin Tarantino. Yusuf says, "I bet Razz is so happy." I actually do love Reservoir Dogs, and I haven't seen it in a very, very long time. I haven't seen it since I was in college, so it's been a while. It's been around a decade since I've seen this movie, but I actually do love it. I love this movie. It's the movie for him that I actually
I'm
like.
so sorry.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. Huge Tarantino fan. Reservoir is my least favorite. Well, I mean, it makes sense, because it's the least Tarantino-y. It has the best of what he does for me, and it doesn't have his worst tendencies. I mean, that's such a like big discussion.
I have to watch it again because it's been a long time. I have to watch it again to see what the differences are. And yeah, I'll table the discussion.
Well, I'll see you guys next Tuesday, and I'll be stuck in the middle with you. Simon made that joke in the comments, and I will echo it here. At any case, thank you guys for joining me. Thank you guys for being in the chat. Thank you for staying with us for so long. Sorry, our discussion kind of took us on a whole it was very difficult to not. It's hard for me to stop now. I want to say so much, but please check out more Hitchcock films. Go watch videos about Vertigo and about the stuff that he's done in it. There are videos out there. There's a lot of information. This is a very big film. You'll find the information out there. Feel free to join the film club on Facebook by Razz Reviews. Just at the film club. Put your discussions there. We can take this discussion there. We can talk there. Don't just share links. Talk. Open up a discussion. Open up a discussion and talk in the comments. This club is for you, not just for me. So hopefully I'll see you guys there, and I'll see you guys next Tuesday. Thank you, Yasser, for joining me. Thank you, Neo. Thank you, Phoenix. And we'll see you guys with Reservoir Dogs next week, same time. Bye.
Bye.